everyone. It's nice to connect with you again. For today's episode, or for this week's episode, we have a very controversial topic. It's very interesting at the same time. It's about abuse, misconduct, sexual scandals in yoga. And the fascinating thing about this topic is that this is something that happens across yoga styles. This is something that has been happening for tens and tens of years now. And accusations have been made systematically, consistently against yoga figures, yoga gurus, yoga teachers. Um, um, this is a very serious topic that we are going to try and tackle. We're going to mention some of the cases that we found, read some excerpts of the accusations, share our own opinions on them as well, of course. But I think the red thread, or why we're doing this in the first place, would be to understand why exactly this happens so often in yoga, regardless of who's doing it and who's teaching it and what's teaching. Yeah. So let's see.
Absolutely. And just to echo all of that, it is a very serious topic. So, we'll do our best to approach it in a very serious manner. We do have quite a few notes. Obviously, we want to make sure that the information that we give is accurate and we're not missing anything. So if you see us looking down or something like that, it's because we're looking at our notes. But not only to understand why it's happening, maybe, and approach that topic, but also just to raise awareness about this. I don't think it's talked enough, and if you don't talk about it, it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that you allow it to continue to happen, because not talking about it, there's no awareness about it. There's no possibility to have a conversation about why it's happening. There's no possibility to learn some lessons from it, and there's no possibility to improve. And also to, have the people that are found guilty basically have consequences for their behavior, right? So again, very serious, and it's to understand why it's happening. It's not just yoga, I think, but we're talking about the yoga community here, but it happens in other communities as well.
And we have done some research on 8 examples of such cases, of such accusations or scandals. On some of them, I have plenty of details that I want to read out. On some others, I didn't found that much detail. So the first one, I think.
And just before you get into those, Monica, something else to mention. This is not an exhaustive list. These are maybe the, let's say, most famous, for lack of a better word, abuse or harassment scandals, but they're definitely not exhaustive, unfortunately. We're going to talk about these, and we're going to also have some links with some more information at the end in the description of the video, so you guys can check those out for more testimonies and just more in-depth accounts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And the first one that I wanted to mention is something that happened in Kripalu Yoga, if you've ever heard of it. It's not very popular in my country, but there's this person, a Kripalu Yoga guru, as it turns out, called Amrit Desai, and he admitted to have sex with his students. That's all I have. There's not a lot of info online that you can find about this case. Alex, is it something that you found by any chance, or?
Yeah, so I found a bit more, and again, it's interesting in a way, in a concerning way, maybe, that there's not a lot of information, right? So we've done quite a bit of research, and they're all kind of just pushed under the rug almost. It's hard to find these details, although Amrit, if that's how you pronounce his name, has actually admitted to this. So it's not even, you can't even say like this is just an accusation. It's actually, he admitted. But yeah, the thing there that happened is, as I researched it, was that in this Kripalu yoga community, it was basically sex with marriage was condoned, and Amrit was married, as far as I understood, was these other affairs happened, let's say, with his students. So he was practicing adultery, although that was like something that he was preaching, let's say, against. And yeah, it's been revealed in 1994, as I found, that he had sexual contact with at least 3 female resident disciples, and that was when he was forced to resign from his position as spiritual director at the Kripalu Yoga center. That was an ashram, actually. And I guess to sort of give kind of his statement. So he stated, more than anything, I want Kripalu to remain a spiritual home for many. I want you to know that we came to this decision together. I deeply regret any suffering I have caused to the people directly involved and to the entire family. So that's his statement, him acknowledging. And as we'll see from the rest of the abused topics that we're going to cover, he's amongst the few, if not the only one, that has actually admitted. So that doesn't, of course, excuse the behavior, but it's something to mention that, yeah, at least he owned up to it.
Yeah, I was gonna interrupt in that it's not very typical to have ownership on your deeds. In fact, my next example is that of John Friend. He is the founder of Anusara Yoga. And as you will find out, it is very much the case of people who have who were accused of such things, of unethical behavior, and who were at the very heart of plenty of sex scandals. You will see that it's the case for most of them that they were very educated people. And that's one of the things that's the most frightening, I would say. In the case of John Friend, he started reading about yoga as early as 13 years of age. He studied with Patabi Jois, Ashtanga Yoga, he studied Iyengar Yoga, Shivananda Yoga, Kundalini Yoga. He also studied the Sufi philosophy. So he was a very educated and cultured character, right? And he founded Anusara Yoga in 1997. Anusara is based on tantric philosophy of intrinsic goodness. It's a bit paradoxical, isn't it? So interestingly enough, it's also, this type of yoga is based on some biomechanical principles of alignment, and Anusara comes from Sanskrit, of course. It means flowing with grace. In 2012, he was at the heart of a sex scandal. There were claims that he was leading a Wiccan coven. Wicca is a philosophy, an attitude, a system of white magic. It's a new age philosophy. They basically organize themselves in what we call covens. And apparently he was conducting these ceremonies with several women that were married, that were practicing, that were, taking part in the ceremonies completely naked. And they were also engaging in sexual activities as part of the ceremonies in this Wiccan coven, right? That has nothing to do with yoga, of course, just with his personal practices. Another thing that he was accused of was, by his former employees, was that he made them accept marijuana deliveries for his own benefit, right? But in his own stead. Um, um, so
Yeah, and I think this, from what I've read, was deemed Anusara Gate, sort of the whole scandal. And yeah, to your point, the what I found is that friend actually suggested that, you know, within this Wiccan coven and the rituals, that sexually charged rituals would heighten everyone's senses and therefore raise more energy. So using this sort of bullshit approach, to be honest, to get, you know, to get them to get naked and engage in sexual activity. And as far as I understood, he actually admitted to sexual relations with his students and his employees as well. Um, some of whom were married, but that's, you know, something I think besides the point, because it was just his, I guess, status and his power that led to all of these happenings. And we'll get more into that as we go on, right? What I, at least from my perspective, what I think about, you know, just the status of this leaders, let's say, in yoga, and the power and how they use that, and
yeah,
yeah, or
there's been
abuse it.
some. There's also been some descriptions of what actually happened, traditionally speaking, after classes led by him. So there's somebody that claims that when class ended, the party began. You know, like
Hmm.
happenings.
Yeah.
Where his adoring fans would drink beer and cocktails and listen to him read poetry as costumed performers roamed around the room. It was kind of a love fest, kind of a party. People really got addicted to being part of this. And you can easily imagine why, right? It only made the community band together. But it's very easy to slip into some sort of debauchery, right? After all of this, after you would congregate with your um, fellow practitioners, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he is said to have been to have achieved some sort of a new thing that was called yoga rock stardom. So
Hmm.
he was a rock star of yoga, very
Yeah.
connected, very cool, very in, very loved, a party boy, and an authority figure that was extremely charismatic. So that's how he was seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I want to mention, and in terms of what's happened to him, right, or so to speak, what's happening at the moment, because this is 2012. We're in 2024. But in 2013, he actually had launched a new alignment-based yoga, which is called Sridhava. And he's still like involved with that. And I just want to, you know, for me, it's very interesting in a disturbing way, right? That he was involved in all this illegal activity to a degree with the marijuana, but then also just the sexual you know, abuse. And then he goes on and, you know, just launches some other yoga, and then that's it. And you have to think about the fact that I think he founded the Anusara. I think when he founded that was like maybe 1997, was it
Yeah, I
1997
think
or
so.
19? And then he was accused, or the first allegations came out in 2012. So that's 15 years of that potentially happening. So who's to say that that's not happening again in this new yoga that he launched in 2013? We're only, you know, 10ish plus years in, so there's still time, unfortunately, for more allegations to come. So I don't, you know, I just, and I think because I don't know how many people know about this, right? I don't know how many people know about what happened. I don't know how many people that go to his classes now know about his predatory you know behavior. um I certainly didn't know before. Well, I've heard something, but didn't know the extent until I actually researched for this podcast.
Yes, I find it a bit surprising that he would leave the yoga that he actually founded. And by the way, this style of yoga is still practiced in studios worldwide today, and people are still being trained to teach it. Just to go and found a different kind. and claim for it to be, the recipe of illumination or success. Um, one of the most respected Anusara yoga teachers worldwide, called Elena Brower. She's a very well-respected figure, um, that's very kind by nature. She's someone I admire. I haven't studied under her or worked with her at all, but you can easily tell that she's very, it's somebody that I would for sure at least attend some classes with. So she has, I have this quote by her. Um, it's not some sort of redemption, but she urges John Friend to do the right thing. I'm not sure whether her words had any sort of echo, but this is what she says. I don't think John meant harm. He just made a series of bad choices. He let a lot of secrets pile up. And as everyone who has done so knows, it will either kill you because everyone finds out, or it will kill you because no one finds out. I suggested to him a while ago that he make a list of all the lies he's ever told, meet up with people, and make it right one by one. It's so simple and it would serve him beautifully. But that was not in his wheelhouse at all. So it's not something that he actually condoned or supported or ever did. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
all I wanted to highlight about Anusara Yoga and John Friend.
Yeah, and the thing is, yeah, he just, fled one style, right, and went to the other, and
Yeah.
it's all good. That, nothing happened. That was so. Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, I don't think I need to say that it's absolutely wrong. And I think, again, not talking about it, not making people aware, not learning any lesson from it means that this can happen. You should just go somewhere else and probably does the same thing.
Yeah. It's good to talk about these things. It's good we have the chance to have a look at them, analyze them, and offer the opportunity of everyone to speak up, I would say. Our
Yeah.
next example is from Ashtanga Yoga, because as we've highlighted, a lot of yoga styles have these accusations. So it's about the very founder of this style of yoga, Sri K. Patabi Jois. He was accused of having made adjustments with his entire body, insisting on the intimate parts of both women and men participating at his classes throughout the ages, starting probably late 1960s and beginning of the 1970s. One person who used to study with him says in this article we found on Medium that, quote, "It took me 20 years to reclaim my agency and overturn the shame. At the time, the idea that the guru of the system could be abusing me seemed impossible. I wanted to believe he was transferring a healing energy to me by touching me that way." Practicing Ashtanga Yoga gave me a sense of purpose and meaning. I was part of an elite group of certified teachers and advanced practitioners. It was my career and my passion. I felt healthy, fit, and capable. I had a sense of fulfillment. I had found where I belonged. I also couldn't bear the idea of being a victim. Ouch.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very sad and frustrating and enraging. And I just want to say that whilst I was doing the research for this, I don't know, it was very challenging. So some accounts and some videos even out there, I just couldn't. I had to stop at times because I just couldn't continue reading. And it was like a physical nausea reaction. Honestly, it's just yeah. For this one, for Patabi Joyce, I actually found quite a bit, and there's like a number of victims, could be well in the hundreds on this one. So it's very, very
That's
serious.
very true.
Yeah. And what I found as well is that apparently the leaders of the Ashtanga community in Mysore were actually aware of these sexual abuse allegations for 2 or 3 decades. So it wasn't even something. It was an well-known fact. Um, let's say, and there were apparently meetings held with him and the family, where he was told by the family to stop behaving like this.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the Patabi Joyce Ashtanga Institute in Mysore, as far as I research, has not made any public statements on the accusations, which I think, unfortunately, just makes them even more true, if that makes sense. Because what I mean by that is, because if they weren't true, for sure, on some, or on so serious accusations, you would want to come out and say, hey, no, okay, right? But they didn't say anything, which I think is quite revealing. And nor did they apologize to the victims of the abuse, which I think it's um, quite shocking. And yeah, it's I also think, and I don't know about this and how much you know about this, Monica, but also in my research, and just from the Ashtanga teachers that I follow, but it doesn't mean I follow all the Ashtanga teachers, but there's quite a few of them that I've never heard them, and from my research, didn't find any public statements or acknowledgement of these accusations, or informing their students about them. And there's some that still have references to, on their website, to Patabi Joyce, like I don't know, whatever wording, whatever he's done. And yeah, I think that's very damning. It's obviously not the entire Ashtanga community by any means, but I think it is, the students, but the teachers' responsibility to talk about this, to make people aware, to keep the community safe, to improve from this, to prevent it from happening again. And I think not talking about it is probably the worst you could do.
Yeah, you're very right, because apart from people being accused of sexual misconduct, there were also accusations against the people who have witnessed such type of behavior and have not spoken against it. On the other hand, there were plenty of long-time practitioners that were supervised, whose practice was supervised by Patabi Joyce himself, that did not go through this or notice this at all, and they have expressed themselves publicly online as well, such as, quote, neither my wife nor I had ever been touched in even a remotely inappropriate manner by our yoga teachers, Shrike Patabi Joyce and Ersharat Joyce, and I had never seen it happen in my years with them. One of the most disturbing things that I came across while doing the research for this episode, Alex, was the actual Vimeo 4-minute video that I urged you to have a look at. It's very easy to find it, and I advise everyone to look at it. Even if you look at it, you can see that things are pretty clear, but at the same time, it's confusing and unclear. And when you watch it, you will understand what I mean. It is indeed a series of yoga adjustments made with private parts against private parts, held together for much more than necessary or needed. So this is obvious, right? And you can tell this by looking at that, by watching the video. And there were always people that were saying, was he healing or was he molesting? So that was the big question there, it seems.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I actually couldn't watch that video. So I know the video and I tried, but for me, seeing the things there, it just made it, I was like, no, this should have never happened, and I cannot
Let's
watch
stop
this.
right here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is very disturbing. There is no way in hell you can convince me that's any healing done there. So yeah, but of course it's we'll try and link that as well at the end, in the description, so people can watch it themselves if they can stomach it and come to their own conclusions. But I think also what I wanted to kind of, and we're going to go through more of these, but just I wanted to, from the lessons learned here, I think we also need to scrutinize the guru concept, right? Because all these and the other ones that we're going to talk about were the gurus, right? Were the the people in that yoga community with powerful positions,
Yeah.
right? And they systematically use these positions to carry out abuse without the fear of being challenged, right? Because if you are this idol, whatever, right, for the people that are practicing with you, first off, they're probably not even gonna, probably gonna understand what's happening in a way, because they can't believe that their idol is actually gonna do something like that,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
then yeah, so it's a disbelief there. And then also, it's, well, how am I, even if they come to understand that, okay, this is not okay, it's like, okay, who's going to believe me? It's this big guru, like obviously everyone is like, it's he's adored, whatever, right? He's super powerful. And so that, I think, means that there could be way more people that were abused or victims, but they never spoke out because
Absolutely.
of this, right? And then ultimately, if you do choose to speak out, which I think it's such a courageous thing to do, um, you might be, shunned out from the community, right? There's also, I'm sure that happens, and that could also be a fear why you wouldn't speak out, outside of the shame, of course, and what will people think, and all of those things, right? Are just, especially when you speak out against a person of power, that just adds up, right? It's a cumulative effect. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and as far as I understood, this whole sleuth of scandals in yoga actually came about more and more with the Me Too movement. That's when some of these allegations came out. And it's just another statement of how good that movement is, for shedding some light on some things that have happened for so long, right? And no one
Yes.
even spoke about them.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is obvious that the hierarchical nature of this student teacher or student guru right relationship it creates a clear power imbalance. It's a power imbalance, literally,
Yeah.
right? In this case, Joyce's students didn't feel that they were in the position to even question his decisions or actions, no matter how unethical his behavior was. And there's someone saying that he is a longtime practitioner and level two authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher by my institute in Mysore. He says, by not talking about the sexual misconduct, we are repressing it and pushing it below the surface. But our yogic process has to be about our willingness to confront our shadows and in some sense make peace with them. So
yeah, and it's so true, right? Because as we said, this is, of course, I'm sure, unfortunately, everyone is aware of other harassment and abuse scandals outside yoga, right? So it's not limited to the yoga community, but it is somehow even more frustrating, I guess, in a way, because I love yoga and I practice it, but not just that, but because yoga is all about kindness. It's all about, we that's the across the board, right? That's the preaching of yoga: love, kindness, tolerance, and so on. And so it's even more frustrating because, like, okay, it's completely against all the teachings.
yeah,
It's completely against all the teachings. So in one breath you say this, and in the other you just go and abuse a student. How does that even? I just, yeah,
it doesn't add up.
He doesn't know.
No. And we have the example of Bikram Choudhury, who has faced several civil lawsuits of sexual misconduct, including one filed in 2013 by his own lawyer, as it seems,
Yeah.
who said that he not only harassed her, but also forced her to cover up allegations of misconduct against other women. And Bikram has denied all allegations. As we all know, there's a Netflix documentary about his life and these accusations. Um, have you found any details by any chance, Alex? Or
Well, I've found quite a bit. I know there were quite a few accusations to your point, and the only one that went to court was the one that his lawyer in 2011 um, initiated an internal investigation into allegations of rape and sexual assault by several of Chowdhury students. So in her case, Los Angeles jurors deliberated for approximately a day before they unanimously decided against Chowdhury, awarding her more than 7.4 million in damages in January 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, yeah, the other cases didn't, I think, go to court, if I recall correctly. But there were quite a few. In all, 7 women, 6 of them former Bikram yoga students, filed civil lawsuits against Chowdhury for sexual assault, harassment, creating a hostile work environment, wrongful termination, or rape.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and the only lawsuit to go to trial was by Chowdhury's former legal advisor, the one I just read about. So yeah, and also what I found is the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office has not chosen to pursue criminal charges against Chowdhury. So here I just want to, this is something else that I feel like is something we should improve, and that is in terms of the laws and the punishments that the people that are found guilty of have to face. I think the laws and the punishments are way too lenient right now, and I think that's why this continues to happen to a rate that is quite alarming, right? Because that doesn't mean that if you increase the consequences and the punishment, it will never happen. I don't think that's possible, but I think it will reduce the numbers, because it's one thing to think, okay, if I do this, well, I might get to court, I might not, but even if I get to court, whatever, usually not much happens, even if they prove it's true, versus, oh, okay, if I do this and I go to court, I might rot in jail. Oh, okay, maybe I don't want to do this, right? And I just think, yeah, all our laws on this are very, very lenient, and yeah, we just have all these cases that they just settle or get away with it. And yeah, in this case, his legal advisor got at least she won, and she got some money in damages. But is that really enough? Like, is that preventing Bikram from doing this again? And I can tell you, I've just read that he, last year in February, he was actually invited to Canada something yoga event in Vancouver.
Really?
So yeah, he was there to teach, and they said, as far as I read from my research, they were like, the boss is back, and the boss being him. So how is that okay? How are we? And it's, again, because I think we don't talk about it, right? We don't know, there's no awareness, or we just dismiss it. I mean, this was proven in court. It's not even
It's not even up for question. And yet there are people
exactly.
who, yeah, there are people who are mixing things up. And in the attempt of trying to separate the individual from the practice or from what they preach, I think they lose themselves, and they lose all morality together with the one that was accused, if you ask me. But this is not for us to judge. Apparently, there have been cases in which the judges were pretty clear, the authority figures, the hand of law, as we say. But yeah, it's quite sad. But I think one of the other red threads that comes up when you look at these cases is that some of them don't even bother to search for some redemption, or to reply, to respond to these accusations. And not only do they attempt to lead their lives, to continue their teachings, but they are supported, asked for, and invited at events. There you go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I am sort of, I can understand that there might be different fears from the other teachers in the community to talk about it, maybe because, again, they might be excluded from the community, or they might lose their livelihoods, or it's serious stuff. But that I just think shouldn't stop you, and for sure that shouldn't mean you should invite him to other events to lead.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's quickly mention BKS Iyengar. I haven't found any sexual misconduct accusations against him online. but traditionally he has been always perceived as somebody who was very cruel during his teaching and the yoga sessions that he used to lead, during his workshops as well. He was actually he was seen openly slapping and kicking his students while telling them, it's not you I'm angry with, it's not you I kick, it's the knee, it's the back, it's the mind that it is not listening. um, I have studied under someone who is a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, with a very serious background and more than 15 years of studying in Iyengar. And as we all know, this is quite serious. They don't give you that certification unless you are, you really study under them for plenty of years. And my point here is that he himself, it's not that he's cruel, but he's very disciplined and holds you accountable by the millimeter, by the minute, by the breath. So you really have to do what he says. It's an environment into which, by the way, I must confess, I function perfectly. It is something I need every once in a while in my practice. I was telling this to somebody and they accused me of having the Stockholm syndrome, oh, you like, you claim to function perfectly in such an environment where where he tries to discipline you and dominate you. But in fact, you're just suffering from the Stockholm syndrome. That while that might as well be true, moving back to BKS Iyengar, he was legendary in terms of trying to discipline others and actually, kicking students with his hands or feet or a stick that he was carrying around. What can I tell you? In 2024, not only that, this is not acceptable. This is absolutely out of the question and
Yeah.
unethical by any means possible, I would say. So,
Yeah, but there was what I found, because his first name initials are BKS, right? There was apparently an inside joke, BKS standing for beat, kick, slap, right? So what he was
oh,
doing. Yeah, and I did find quite a long article about um, sexual abuse and cover up at Yengar in New York, more recently um, by other teachers there. So I won't go into all of those details. We'll link that in the description. But it's to say, this is another example of, we don't talk about it. It continues to happen. It's not carried by Iyengar. It's carried by someone else that is the director of that institute. And just the account and what I've read here, of course, these are, allegations, they're alleged, whatever. Of
yeah,
course, they're just testimonies from people. Although I will say, I don't think anyone has anything to gain from this. They probably all have a lot to lose. But anyway, it is just shocking. So, yeah, and it continues to
it
happen.
is. It's not about the method, though. The method is that of profound discipline, and that's what I meant when I was saying that I every once in a while I truly need it and look for it and try to to develop my practice within this. But I've studied with Iyengar yoga teachers, Hungarians, Italians, Russians, that had nothing to do with the cruelty BKS Iyengar was accused of, and that were very kind-hearted and mild individuals. And what do you know? The class would function perfectly, and they didn't need a stick to kick you in the knee with. And you would do the poses mindfully as expected anyway. So there are always alternatives.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
And I think two things to mention. So kicking you anyway is abuse. It doesn't matter how you put it. So it's discipline. It's not. And the other thing, just to, because I don't think I gave more details on the case in New York, with this director. It wasn't about the violent abuse. It was more about sexual abuse. So it's a different kind, but still
mm,
a very serious one, of course.
right. I think we have a lot of cases still left to talk about and not enough time left, but let me go on with a very controversial case that has been on for tens and tens of years. And that is the case of the Hatha Yoga guru from Romania. He's called Gregorian Bivolaru, also known as Grieg, and also known as Magnus Orolfsson, and you'll see why when I give you the full account of what's happened. So first of all, we have to understand that yoga practice was completely banned in Romania under the communist regime, which is up to 1989. You obviously did not have any resources that you could study or people that you could study under to develop your practice. So he was an outlaw, he was an outcast in that sense. And of course, you had not that too many people to turn to in case you wanted to deepen your yoga practice. So he was the founder of this movement called MISA, movement for the spiritual integration in the absolute. To me, when we speak about sexual misconduct and unethical behavior in yoga, the Gregorian Vivolaru case is absolutely fascinating because I have a hard time understanding how on God's green earth was he able to gain so many followers and how his charismatic figure as a leader attracted so many people, because up to this day, still in 2024, after so many years, this movement is, let's just say, it has a lot of members, and by that I mean thousands. And what's also true is it's not only about Romania. His story goes like this. He basically expanded his scope, his charisma, and his leadership and his misconduct all across Europe and Thailand and India as well. So he gained several followers that used to lead communities in Denmark, in Finland, in Sweden, in France, and in several islands and cities in Thailand that would carry his words forward and would do the bad deeds for him in his stead. And this has remained true up to this day. So, for instance, just a quick list of his of the things that he's been accused of. So. In 2005, the Supreme Court of Sweden agreed to grant political refugee status to Bivolaru in response to his claims of persecution by Romanian authorities. In June 2013, the High Court of Cassation and Justice of Romania definitively sentenced Gregorian Bivolaru to 6 years in prison without suspension for sexual acts with a minor. Young female members of this movement for the spiritual integration into the absolute, right? So they said they were forced to work as strippers and appear in hardcore porn films. Um, France executed a European arrest warrant for him in 2016, and he was again arrested in France in November 2023, which is what, 2 months ago. There's also, of course, there have been, these associations and highly esteemed yoga figures worldwide have taken a position against him and dissociated themselves or their actions with Gregorian Bivolaru. For instance, the president of the European Yoga Council, of European Yoga Alliance, and honorary secretary of the European Federation of Yoga, he announced the following. He said, "My official resolution as president of the European Yoga Council and Alliance is that Gregorian Bivolaru and all people linked to his association are immediately expelled from our organization, and we stop their membership because it has been proven that they are not busy with yoga in whatever form. They are not. They even use yoga as a cover for illegal practices. They do not respect the rules and standards of our organization, and they show an unheard lack of moral integrity and cannot be convinced to change their attitude either." If you look online, you will find a lot of articles about him and how his group spread out all over the world as an octopus, trying to gain more followers, to make more money, to obtain a lot of material goods and rewards out of innocent people's lack of knowledge. Let's put it this way. So
Yeah, and just to say, because you've said this already, innocent people, and I think you were saying before, like, how does this individuals still like have followers, how. And I think it's unfortunately that, because they usually, this type of people like him, prey on the innocent, prey on the vulnerable, prey on the people that maybe are lonely, that want a community, that. And it's so infuriating and disgusting.
It is. So far, I haven't noticed anyone that was accused of these seriously, serious wrongdoings and stopped, to be honest with you. So I haven't heard of any such cases. And the only thing I've heard was they switched sides. No, not sides. They switched to other organizations and continued their work there, with or without a changed attitude. And I've also heard, which is very concerning, of people that would carry their words forward, as it's the case with bipolar as well.
Yeah, but that's, I think, goes back to what I was saying, because we don't have laws and punishments and consequences for this type of behavior. So it's just, no one talks about it. We don't do anything about it. We don't learn from it. We don't improve. We don't prevent re-happening. And they just continue to do that. I think in this case, maybe the very small silver lining is that actually the yoga community did condemn what was happening and what is happening with this case,
Yeah.
in an official statement versus the others.
What is very concerning for me and very infuriating for me as a yoga teacher in Romania is that there are still a lot of Romanians who associate the practice of yoga with this type of behavior and these type of happenings. And they automatically assume that if there was this authority figure and charismatic leader that whose associations and organizations used to do this terrible sexual misconduct practices, then it must mean that all yoga is like that, right? Oh, so you do yoga, so then you're that weird sex freak, right? So it's still a lot of prejudice to fight against. Maybe the younger generations, for sure, they are more westernized in terms of yoga mentality, and much more open-minded. But I can tell you, in Romania, it is an endless fight to make people understand that yoga is not like that. This is just something that happened. This is criminal behavior that must be condemned. Yoga has nothing to do with it. So
Yeah, and I think that also comes back to speaking about it, being open about it, educating people about it, talking
yeah,
about the whole thing, right? Again, it's a bit different. Yeah, here I think in the West in general, yoga is becoming more and more mainstream. I think they're thinking of teaching it already here in like schools
yeah.
and stuff. So which is great. And the perspective here, I think, as I said, is like, it's not talked about, like people don't even know this occurred. And in Romania seems to be quite different, that people heard about this, was talked about some more, but it was just this, right? And then you don't separate, maybe. So again, it goes back to being open, not pushing it under the rug, and just being like, okay, how can we learn and improve, accept that happened, and uh, and as I said a few times, prevent it from re-happening, rather than just it can go badly in any other way, I think.
It can go bad in many ways, and this is probably the case, the next case, the last but one case that we will mention during this episode, and that's the case against some Jiva Mukti yoga prominent figures, not necessarily against the founders of this yoga style. Jiva Mukti means, by the way, liberation while living. Again, another style that is highly esteemed and practiced in studios worldwide today. Very special, very cool, very vigorous yoga style, both physical and spiritual as well. Yeah, so this style of yoga was founded in 1984 by Sharon Gannon and David Life. What the accusations I found was against a prominent figure that was a teacher of Jiva Mukti, this woman called Laura Manenti. She had a cult of personality that her favorite students were trying to feed. So one testimony goes like this: it was almost like a sorority. It felt like I was entering a family, which was a strong appeal for me. The yogic sisters there taught me how she liked her tea and how she preferred the blankets at the studio to be folded. All of us worked together to please Ruth Lauer Manenti. The fact that she liked me so much and I was her favorite, somehow I felt so special. I really had never felt that way in my entire life, to feel that kind of love from an authority figure. How does that sound? It sounds scary to me. Apart from sounding cultish, it sounds borderline psychotic.
Yeah, and I did find quite a bit on this. So again, it's quite a long article, and we'll link that as well at the end in the description. Yeah, it's concerning. I think again, it goes back to how do we
challenge the notion of guru and how we cede the power to these all powerful gurus, right?
A guru is literally somebody who, I mean, the noun itself means somebody who dispels ignorance. The more charismatic they are, the bigger the cult and the veneration will be, right? The more vulnerable and lost and innocent and kind-hearted and needy of love and affection you are, the more and more magnetic you'll find their power. And they will have, some of them, obviously, they have no shame in making abuse of this power towards the needy and the vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
the
sure
thing,
everyone
because
has.
everything that you've said, all those type of people would be more, let's say, attracted to yoga, because that's what yoga is about. So it's just yeah, it just adds up, right? That's what you would get. So it's very targeted almost, that so it's easier almost, you would think, right? Those type of people are the ones that,
in
yeah,
that
come.
environment in that environment, it's very easy to exercise your power and your influence. And I'm sure everyone has heard of Yoga Anatomy by now. It's that famous book wrote by Leslie Kaminoff, and he has something to say about the Jivamukti yoga scandals and the accusations against highly esteemed Jivamukti teachers. He says, I don't necessarily think that Sharon and David started out thinking we're in this business to become gurus and have people worship us. I don't think they started out this way, but the projections that happen in an intense situation like that are very, very strong. There's not a single spiritual organization I know of that has escaped this. And he's right. If they had a charismatic leader sitting at the top of it. This is very right and very true. And it's also the case, probably the perfect example illustrating this. It's also the case of our last example, and that is Muji. So he was born in Jamaica to a Chinese father and a Jamaican mother, and moved to the UK when he's about 16. He was a disciple of big yoga figures such as Papaji Ramakrishna, Sri Ramana Maharshi, and so on and so forth. Allegedly, he had sex with students. He used to scream at his devotees to kiss his feet. He was very busy with money laundering and power abuse behind the scenes. What's more, two of his devotees committed suicide. So yeah, these accusations are these examples are getting crueler and crueler, and it's like a thriller movie that we're in. He was accused of having this cult of devotion and worship around himself while abusing many in the process. I'm just trying to highlight again, separating the man from the practice. And I have this great quote here that says, it's by a great guru in India. It says, this quote says, take a mixture of sand and sugar. Be like the wise that only takes the sugar and leaves the sand untouched. Um, yeah, whatever that means. To me, it means you should be able to discern between a man and his actions, between the good things and the bad things that he's doing, and only take what serves you from there. But make sure you're not witnessing any bad behavior and protecting the person displaying it.
Yeah, it's almost that thing, right? That it's like it sounds harsh, but I think it's true that if you know about it and you don't speak about it, you're almost you're guilty as well, in a way, right? Maybe you're, you can argue you're not as guilty as the person that commits the abuse, but I just don't, it's just, yeah, it's hard for me to say, okay, you're innocent. No, you're not, because and you don't say anything about
Yeah,
it. So you're kind of partaking,
yeah,
into it
definitely.
in a way.
As far as I understand, the reason why we talk about why we come across sex scandals and unethical behaviors and misconducts across all styles of yoga is because people searching for yoga, most of them or many of them, are in the search for their true nature, for truth, for love, for being understood and being heard and being accepted the way they are. And such people are very vulnerable to being influenced, to being duped, to being to accepting unethical behavior just for the promise of something better. So that's why I was saying that the more needy you are, the more vulnerable you are in front of unethical behavior. That's how I see things.
I think some of these people at least know, they are aware of this. They're doing it on purpose. I mean, they all are doing it on purpose. I don't think any of the ones we talked about weren't aware of what they were doing. But I think more so, knowing the community you attract, and just, yeah, it's that intention.
Yeah, and but what's more appealing than being loved and accepted for who you are, and embraced fully in a very closely knit community, and surrendering to the promises of a better life. I mean, this is very seductive in itself. So I think my personal conclusion is that we really must use our critical thinking to discern who we're associating with, what kind of practices we start, because now it's already 2024. I mean, for sure, there are plenty of resources available out there for us to be able to take a good decision on our path of practice. So, yeah.
Speak up. Yeah. Speak up if you know about something. Of course, the victims, as I said, I think you need
Always.
to have a lot of courage, and I think they all demand, our respect and our support for what they've done. But even if you're not involved directly, you have, that responsibility to not be quiet, I think. And now with these movements and with more people coming up, I think there is a bit of a shift, maybe, that people start listening to the victims more. But I think it's still early
True.
stages, and I think it's up to us, all of us, to make sure we continue to, as I said, shed light on things that aren't okay and that should be discussed, and as I said, learned from, and improved, right,
Yeah.
and make sure that they don't
So I think
reoccur.
this is it for today. We encourage everyone to speak up and also, as I said, use their critical thinking, because not all accusations are true. At the same time, we are responsible to, speak about them and not tolerate and not hide under the rug whatever happens that is questionable.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, so that was us, guys, today. As I said, we'll have links um for some of the things we've discussed and more details there. And yeah, we'll see you next time.